So, thanks everybody for tuning in today to Short North Podcast. We got a special guest, Rob Pilger, a big fighter, had a very good career, a couple of Golden Gloves.
Three Golden Gloves.
And you went professional as well,
Just a
correct?
few pro fights,
Okay.
But more extensive amateur career. Three Golden Gloves, three runner-ups, involved with boxing since 1992.
Boom.
Yeah.
So, yeah, here he is, everybody. Rob Pilger, thanks for
Hey, thanks for
coming.
having me, man.
Yes,
Appreciate
definitely.
it.
So we'll get right into it. How early did you start to train to fight?
I was 14 years old. That's when I first got involved in boxing.
What got you into boxing?
Well, my grandfather, whom I didn't know, he passed away when I was 10 months old. He was a fighter, and I have one of these. I should have brought it out here. I have one of those old black and white photos of him. He fought out in California and the camp out there, and he taught. I had 6 uncles. I grew up on a farm up until I was. I worked on it during the summers and a little bit in the fall, up until I was about a senior in high school. And my uncles, when I was a kid, would teach me how to hold my hands. Because my grandfather Wiley, which is my middle name, Wiley, taught them how to fight. We got old photos of them with big boxing gloves on, boxing each other.
So it's kind of a family.
It's in the blood. However, I grew up in the sticks, up in Northwest Ohio, and Henry County and New Bavaria. And it's like, there's not gonna be no gyms around here. And it wasn't until I was a freshman in high school where I met Charlie Howe, and they had a gym of all places in Grelton, Ohio, which nobody knows where that is.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of that.
It's a small little speck country town, but they had a gym there. Mm-hmm. And I started training when I was 14, and I had my first amateur fight in Detroit, Michigan, in March 1992. I still have the trophy. I still have my hand wraps after the win of winning that fight. And that was it, and been involved with it ever since.
Now, me being a guy that's about to have a kid, I want to get him into boxing for a couple of different reasons. It's good to kind of grow up and have some discipline in you. And then for the defense, what age do you think it's good to get a kid kind of in the gym?
I used to only take kids 8 and up, then we started doing it 7. Now we even get 5-year-olds. We've had 5-year-olds come in here, and it just depends on. It's very individualistic. It depends on their motor skills, and I'll even say how they've been raised by their parents. Do they pay attention can they pay attention to detail? Are they? And what I mean by how they are raised are when you bring them to a gym here, are they overcome? Is it too much stimulus for them? Mm-hmm. So it just depends. But we usually have 5-year-olds in here that we do right now. A couple of them, they're doing very well. Now the volume that you put on them has to be tailored. And of course it's their attention span and can they process the instruction that you're teaching them. And again, are their motor skills developed enough at that age to be able to process the techniques that you're trying to teach them? So I would say it is possible even 4-year-old, but I've had people contact me over the years, and I have a 3-year-old, and there's not really much you can do with a 3 or 2-year-old. But my daughter, for instance,
and I see her in here all the time.
Hannah Ray, our pride and joy. She's been raised in this gym. I have photos in my office of having her in her little carrier and her playpen, and she's watched, and you can bring a child to the gym and have them watch you train, or if you have a home gym at home, watch them train. That's just as good in a sense. And that's a Tiger Woods, Tiger Woods' father would be out there. I didn't know he was a great golfer himself, but he'd be out there, hitting the balls on the course, and he had little Tiger in a little pouch watching him do that. And he just created that link. So you got to keep that in mind too. So you could do that as well, and you're introducing an active lifestyle to your child at a young age. So I highly recommend that for people to do as well. You know what I mean? We become what we are around.
Yes.
You become what you see, what you're constantly exposed to. So keep that in mind.
Okay. Now, going from being a fighter to coaching on the other side of the ring, how was that transition, and what made you want to stay in the sport as a coach?
I just, it's been a great, it's changed my life, and not from a poverty to abundance of financial gains type of way, but just character-wise, self-esteem, of course, more so self-image. It's just in my blood from my grandfather. It's something I enjoyed teaching to others. I started teaching in Syracuse, New York in 2002. I would work with, I trained Judge Mordew, I still remember his name, a federal Supreme Court judge. I trained CEOs, I trained college kids, I trained fighters. But the bottom line was the workout itself. And as you were telling me previously this morning is, do you feel like you're getting in the best shape you've been since you were in high school?
Yeah.
People's reactions to the art of boxing, it's woken them up. It's a phenomenal way for them to get in shape, a different type of shape. But what it's done for their mindset, particularly with different stresses they feel from their different careers and stress load of life, period. A really good business book that I read, one of my favorites, I read a lot of books, I've read over the years, is a Starbucks Experience. And what they talk about in there and teach in there is creating a third place. You have work, you have home, and there's a third place where somebody goes. Well, I wanted to create a gym that's that third place where people can come in and lose themselves. And much like Starbucks, which, why would somebody pay $4 for a cup of coffee? But they didn't tailor themselves as the typical cafe. Obviously, it was like a French bistro type of atmosphere, and they made themselves distinctive. And therefore, I wanted to create a place that was distinctive where somebody can come in and lose themselves, forget about their job, even at home, forget about the home, stress at home, and come in here and be in a different world. And that made me happy, and I wanted to do, that fulfilled me in a sense, where I got a little bit burned out of the training and competing. That lit my fire even more.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I feel like you have created that atmosphere. One of the first things I noticed when I came in, because you kind of don't really know what to expect, but I noticed that all of the people that are training are very nice. They're very opening, welcoming. It's not as much of a environment where you walk in and become intimidated. It's a very open and welcoming environment, and you cultivated it well.
Appreciate that, and that's what I pride myself on. It's called culture, developing the culture here, and people like you, that's what I want and I expect. And real fighters are gentlemen. Real fighters are gentlemen. You hear the saying, you can't fake the funk. People that are rude, obnoxious, and want to be tough guys are very insecure. And in the ring, when you fought them, when they try to intimidate you as a fighter, going back to as a fighter, when they tried to come at you with that junk, you could break them down mentally in the ring. I wouldn't say rather easily, but fairly quick, because it was a illusion. It was a mirage of they're weak, trying to be strong. So with that, in the gym, I always want the right people in here. I want the right atmosphere, you know what I mean? I want you to be comfortable. I want it to be competitive, which it is, but very welcoming. And it's real and it's authentic, and that's what it's about, and that's the way it should always be. And that's the way our gym's always gonna be.
So what do you look for, a new kid coming through the door? Hey coach, I want to be a fighter. What do you look for in that kid to be like, all right, this is someone that I can mold into a fighter?
Coachable, less words, more action. Have them listen, do as we say, show up, be consistent. And more, I get calls every day, and you hear, and I interrupt people sometimes, a lot of times, and it's not to be rude, it's just like, I want to see it, not hear it. Come in, and the more people show up, especially for a guy like me, who's been in the game since '92, students have to earn your attention. They have to show that they want it, that they'll be here. It's just like, this is no different than a relationship with a man or a woman, you know what I mean? It's just like the relationship you have with the student. It's the same thing. Are they going to be there for you to put your energy in? You know what I mean? So I look at the character, talent, there's a lot of books out there written about skill acquisition, talent is overrated, and that's very true. The thing I look at is character, that trumps uber talent with subpar work ethic, subpar character, and not being coachable. If they're coachable, they can be a piece of Play-Doh, and we can mold them.
How long do you think it takes from just getting in here and getting started to being able to get out there and actually compete in the ring?
It depends. I've seen, it just depends. It's a great question, and it's a very individualistic one. Background, again, character, mindset. It's the mentality, really, of what a student brings to the table. Some can develop, obviously, a lot faster than others. Mm-hmm. It just depends. It can be anywhere from 2 months to 6.
Really?
Yes. But here's my philosophy with that. Being around boxing since '92, you see a lot of great things, and you see a lot of bad things. You learn from both, obviously. Mm-hmm. But the biggest flaw with coaches, and I have a great memory. And I remember in Syracuse, New York, back in 1998, there was this team from Niagara. My then trainer, Ray Rinaldi, he was the president of boxing in Syracuse, New York region, and he brought a team down. He had a show at the fairgrounds. It was the summertime, and there's this team from Niagara that came down, and those fighters, every one of those fighters got stopped, and they just had no skill. They were ill prepared. That whole team looked like that. Who's responsible for that? The coach.
Yeah.
He rushed them. And, I always tell people, you're going to remember your first fight for the rest of your life. I certainly do. Everybody does. Your first kiss, it's first everything. Mm-hmm. And you want the fighter, and I always tell people, I want you to enjoy this. I want you to get in that ring and be very comfortable. You want to be as comfortable in that ring as you are walking around your own living room. And that takes time. There's no rush. Haste makes waste, you hear, but it's the truth. So if I'm very conservative in nature, and I'm very conservative in taking my time. I want somebody to be more than ready when they step in that ring, and I want them to be able to display skill, because that is a reflection on us. And our coaches here do a good job of, helping with teaching that skill. But I'm the one that makes the call when they fight, and it's for me, it's a very delayed and slow step on purpose.
Now, with boxing, everybody loves to publicize their wins, and that's all people really talk about. But losing is another aspect of the game. How do you keep your fighters still motivated after they have suffered a loss?
You got to tell them, and you got to, hope that they have the mindset to understand that this is a different era for one. It's far more challenging, I'll say, today. The era of social media, Instagram. I was just telling one of our students last night, and I work with Rashid, and he was frustrated with the softball, which is normal. It's opposite of the orthodox. It throws you off. And I was like, these are lessons you always want to learn in the gym. Better to learn in the gym than in a fight. And in a fight, a loss is just another step forward. It's like I tell everybody, you see these national champions out there. They're national champions for a reason. Excuse me. They're used to tough opposition. They started at the bottom too, and they've lost, but that's what's honing them. Iron sharpens iron. And if you can withstand the frustration and the anguish of taking a loss, and it doesn't have to be that hard. It's the guy got the best of you that day, but you learn from them. You learn from that style, what you lacked or what they showed you, a different look that you haven't seen, and you add that to your own repertoire. You take a step forward with that, and that's how you get better. It's the fighters and the coaches, more so the coaches, they're afraid to have their fighters lose because it makes them look bad. Take your ego out of it. I take my ego out of it. I match our fighters tough for a reason, because I want them to get better that much faster. So I am conservative in nature, but if there is a faster track to developing somebody's skills, it's matching them tough. I'm not saying overmatch them and put them in over the head, but you don't overprotect them. You're not afraid of them losing. That's my point. You have to. Losing is part of winning, and that's why I tell them. And it is. Losing is part of winning. You learn from it. Then it hones you and makes you stronger. Then you get to a point where you do stuff in there from that tough opposition and from those losses. You're a lot harder to beat, more so than you ever would be if you were afraid to lose and not take a match because you didn't want to lose. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. But do you feel like there's a lot of ego with the coaches in this sport?
It's. I've held 50 fight shows here in Columbus, Ohio, since October 2012. The first year I've held amateur shows, I did 12 shows in 1 year. 10 shows in 1 year. 10 shows in 12 months.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I don't know how I did it back then. And, looking back, I would never try to attempt that again today. But I'm very proud of that, and that's a lot of coaches in that over 50 shows and egos that you work with and you have to put up with. It's a very difficult. It's very difficult, and if you get a coach with too big of an ego and it could really be detrimental to the fighter, and I feel sorry a lot of guys do, for some of the students, because it's the coach's ego that limits them in their development, and it's also holds them back. So, and that's with anything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
with any of your fighters, have you ever had to throw in a towel?
Oh yeah.
What is usually your thought process when you're like,
protect the fighter first, but with that, it rarely happens because I know how to match them for one. I'm not going to overmatch them. I'm going to match them tough, but not for the first couple fights. You want to put them in there with somebody with no experience and somebody that's on the same level of them. They're from 0 to 10 fights. It's a novice division, and that's very fairly matched. And it's you're in there with a guy with just as less experience with you, so it's very even. You don't see it that much. The only time I had to throw in the towel is if they weren't prepared skill-wise, mentally. When you get under those lights, some fighters just freeze. And it was from
as anything.
Yeah. I trained a couple actors here, Broadway actors. They're back, here in Ohio.
Broadway
actors.
Oh
yeah, Broadway.
You trained them in boxing.
Yeah, to keep them in shape. It's a very, very audacious, tough routine that they do on Broadway for an hour. They're moving, jumping, dancing, singing.
Okay, that makes sense.
So this gets them prepared, and it's also my train of thought. It's just like you have to be comfortable. You have to be comfortable under the lights. You have to be comfortable in front of the crowd. You have to be able to perform. You can know all your routines and everything, but if you're not comfortable in that situation, then you're not going to perform your role as effectively as you should. You know what I mean? And fighters, I throw it in the towel because it just froze. Like they just got they didn't believe in themselves. So it's there. And I tell a lot of guys, don't fight yourself more than you have to fight your opponent.
Right.
And that's what this is about. Anybody that's ever stepped in the ring knows that you fight yourself just as much as the person on the other side of the ring. And it's very hard. And I respect any fighter that gets in the ring with the intention to win, because it is a very scary thing to do. The emotions that go through your mind and what you're experiencing it's It's a very profound experience that, again, you'll never forget for the rest of your life. So again, I don't throw in the towel from a lack of skill. It's from if the fighter just mentally shuts down and they're scared.
Okay. Since the popularity and the rise of MMA, how has that affected your sport?
Well, you always hear people say for years, boxing's dying. It's not the case. For one, we're all brothers in the fight sports. I'll say that. A lot of MMA fighters. It's MMA fighters. For one, it's mixed martial arts, so it's a mixture of all martial arts. Of course, the big four: jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu, and some judo. But boxing too, striking. You look at what's his name that just knocked out Stipe.
Stipe.
What's his name? Ngannou. Boxing, striking.
Yeah. And he looked very sharp.
Very sharp. And so they both go hand in hand, and they both coexist fine. I mean, you look at a big fight coming up in boxing, Anthony Joshua, I will say the champion's name first, the true champion, Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. When the COVID's over with and we can start packing out stadiums, that fight will generate over 100,000 in attendance. MMA doesn't do that. So if you want to say MMA's destroying boxing, that's not the case, because you look at the attendance that boxing big fights still elicit. It's remarkable, and the energy. But there is no competition between the both. That's what writers write about, and that's what promoters want. It's a battle. From a promoter, it's a battle of getting the consumers to buy your wares, so to say. So they're out there trying to get, as much viewership as possible. But those that are in the game know that they both coexist quite fine, and they both complement one another.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
But I will say, boxing has far more heritage. Your grandfather did it. Your great-grandfather did it. Your great-great-grandfather did it. MMA's not there yet. But that stuff should be dying down as far as, does MMA overshadow boxing? Not whatsoever. Does boxing overshadow MMA? No, it's a different type of... It's almost like a different type of song. There's all types of music out there for a reason. That there's country, there's rock, there's R&B. They all have their stars, and they're all going to be around forever. It's the same thing with this, right? Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right.
Where do you see the sport going in the next 10 years?
It's always going to be there. There's going to be new stars, and it depends on the promoter. Like Bob Arum's an old man. I met him before in Hollywood, California, at Freddie Roach's gym. The guy's a legend. Been around. He promoted Ali.
Okay, wow.
That's how long he's been around. He's 90-some now. But guys like that, he's a grassroots promoter. They keep the sport going. So as long as there's another, and he's got people under him that will take over Top Rank, which is his promotional entity. This depends on the type of promoters that are around that keep. And of course, there's always new stars. Teofimo Lopez is this new star. It's just like Floyd retired. There's always a fighter to fill the void. So it's just going to keep moving forward. But you always need the right type of promoter to get it out there to the public in unique ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's always going to be a hungry kid. As long as boxing gyms remain open, which they will. This is for a young, hungry, impoverished, or even not even impoverished, but for somebody that's just looking for a way out, for a new opportunity, these gyms give those fighters that avenue.
That outlet.
And it's always going to be there, and there's always going to be somebody new because of that.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
So, all right, in closing out, how can people get in touch with you, and if they want to get in here and get to the gym, what's the best way to contact you? And
well, we have a website, oldschoolboxing.com. That's Skool is spelled SKOOL, oldschoolboxing.com. All the information of what we do, photos, videos, membership types are on that website. My email is rob.pilger@gmail.com. I respond very quickly to emails, so if anybody's ever interested in coming out here, and I always offer a trial workout because I said that to you as well, because trying it or talking about it is one thing, but doing it is the best way to explain the benefits of the workout, and you'll know right away if this is for you or not, which is
you'll know from day one.
Exactly. So come on in. It's the best way to experience it and experience the atmosphere of the gym. So I always welcome. For those of you watching, you're more than welcome to come in and try that, do a trial workout. And you may also call me at 614-940-6049. Text or call. I'm very responsive to both as well.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Rob Pilger.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes,
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.